Well, hello, I'm Joanna with Blissful Baby Sleep Coaching, and I am here with another success story. Hi, you guys. Thank you for being here.
Hello.
All right, so we've
Absolutely.
got mom and dad.
Hmm.
We're talking about their 14-month-old baby boy, their one and only child. And so the question is, what did life look like before you called me?
It was hard. We were, we never really had, prior to calling you and his whole entire life, never was a baby that slept through the night. And so we were always dealing with multiple wake ups, always needing to feed overnight. And until about a year, I was kind of figured like, okay, well, he's still baby, he's growing, and I want to respond as he grows, and that's totally fine. And then as he, kind of crescented a year and into, afterwards, it was like, well, when does this stop? And then and then it kind of got just kept getting progressively worse of needing to, respond more and more and needing more bottles and more this and more, more holding. And he, we didn't like to sleep. He didn't stay asleep. He would only contact nap. And really truly at the end of the day, like he was only contact sleeping. And if we were able to transfer him, it was good for maybe 90 minutes, 2 hours. And it was not a lifestyle. We kind of looked at it and was like, this isn't what we need. This is what we want.
Yeah. And I think that it was hard because because his sleep needs kind of appeared to be like, oh, maybe we just have a baby that just doesn't sleep a lot, right?
Yeah, it was like we got a really active one. He runs around all the time. He just doesn't like sleep. That's fine. Babies don't need to sleep. That was
Right.
really our mentality. Yeah.
Exactly. And Dad, describe bedtime about how, how he would do the run around. Why don't you?
Yeah, so every night we'd have to do a big old bottle, and then he would drink his bottle, and he would have to jump down from the rocker, run out of his room, run around the house for half an hour, and then come back before he would even go to sleep.
Mm-hmm. You could
Right.
do his little like drunken sailor run around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So there they were, they have this 14-month-old and they're thinking, okay, wait a second. Bedtime is taking forever.
Mm-hmm.
He's falling asleep super late. He's waking up at like 5 a.m.,
Sometimes four.
sometimes 4. We're
Yeah.
also waking up with him 2 to 3 times a night, giving him a big fat bottle, which
Mhm.
then, of course, he wants to drink the whole thing and then stay in our arms for forever and ever, so each arousal will take like an hour plus. And then during the day, Dad was, nap trapped with contact naps.
Yeah. Well,
So
and even like
Yeah.
with the bottles overnight, it was like, as you're transitioning off of, formula to whole milk, and it's like, well, they're only supposed to have X amount of ounces of milk a day. And it was like, well, he gets all of those in the middle of the night. Like, what am I, plus also for naps and plus also and feeling like of like, how am I ever going to wean off the overnight bottle, wean off the bottle in of itself with always needing to do these things. And so feeling all of the pressure in that too was really hard.
yes, exactly, exactly. Okay, so then what made you decide to ask seek help? Like what was the turning point? I mean, obviously things were hard, but he was 14 months old. So what was kind of happening that you finally said, I think I need some expert support?
Yeah, we got out of the holidays. We were like, okay, once the holidays are finally over, things will just magically get better.
Mhm.
And he'll start sleeping better. And instead of getting better, they just got worse. It got worse and worse.
Mhm.
And we sat down and talked to each other. We're like, where do we see this going? And you had a new job
Yeah.
coming up. And we were like, how are we going to make the new job work with how much sleep he's getting and how much sleep and
We're not
mom
getting.
is not getting?
And it was, a matter of just kind of like sitting the new job and, really kind of kicked off the conversation of like, okay, well, how do we make this work? If I take this new opportunity, what does that mean for us? And what does that mean for our, our daily life? And it was that it didn't feel like we had any space to do anything extra. And so the idea of me having to work even more than what I was currently working was like untenable of like, well, we can't do that. But at the same time, you can't turn down a, exciting job opportunity either. And so it was like, well, how do we make this better? And we'd heard about, we knew you. I mean, we'd met with you prior, and we'd heard you, and we were family, friend connection and such. And so it was like, and had always kind of said like, oh, we don't need that. We don't need that. And it finally was like, oh, okay, we need this. We need to make a change. Something has to give.
Yeah. And if you could just elaborate a little bit more on, we don't need that. Like, can you tell us what was underneath it? Was it, because again, you knew about me. We'd already talked twice, right? So, so you knew that I was like professional and
Came with the highest recommendation.
yeah, kind and
grandma who knew
considerate
you
and
personally.
yeah. Yeah. And like, I wasn't just some internet girl. I was like someone, a
No.
known entity that
Yeah.
you guys could trust, right? So they're like the trust
Yeah.
factor was already like,
Mhm.
some families, like they've never even heard of a sleep expert before, and they
Right.
certainly haven't heard of me personally. So then they're kind of going into two areas of unknownness, which is like, I'm asking for help from a stranger and
Mhm.
asking for help with a sleep coach, which I've never even heard of that before. But you
Yeah.
guys had the benefit of knowing me already and also having a personal recommendation. And yet still there was a part of you, even though you were struggling, that was like, this isn't for me. So I think it's important to kind of, let's go underneath that and talk what were the assumptions going on for you?
Mhm.
Yeah, and some of the assumptions were that it was just gonna get better. It was just gonna magically, like, we just had to get over the next hump of whatever was in his life that was interfering with his sleep, and then he would start sleeping as much as he should and start having great, wonderful naps. And part of why we just took us so long to finally reach out is as a parent, it feels like you should be able to do everything for your child. Like, oh, I should be able to like do the research, do some Googling, get some books from the library, figure out what's going on. And so much of the information that's out there is just contradictory, even when it seems like it's from two like great sources. You're like, this person says this, that person says that.
And who has time to do all of the research? I mean,
Yeah, when you're not
in
getting
the
any
morning,
sleep.
And and I think the other piece too is fear of like, okay, well, if we take that path of we accept the help and we go through that of we're gonna have to go through the period of transition of like, I'm not, holding my baby to sleep every, all the time. And I'm, not and feeling that like fear of like, what if I don't respond every moment of every day? And what does that look like? And realizing that that's not what this is, and that that this is more of a learning, teaching your kid how to sleep. And once we started of realizing that, like, instead of keeping my baby safe by responding to him, I was hindering him, and he wanted to sleep by himself. And once we really started, and it was like that became really evident of that he wanted this, it was like, oh well, what have I been doing? We should have done this months ago. And I think that was a piece too of that. It just, was trying to, like feeling like we should be able to do this ourselves. And like, what if we're not doing it ourselves? And what does that look like? And how does that future even unfold?
Yeah, I think you said a couple of really important things, like this idea that we're always looking for two signs of readiness. One, we absolutely want to understand that the child is showing signs of readiness for independent sleep. Okay. And so that's obvious, right? Because, everything we're trying to do is keep the child, take into consideration where they are developmentally and et cetera. But then there's this other piece that that needs to be talked about more is the parent's readiness to make the change, right? And so sometimes the readiness is that assumption of like, well, I don't need to be ready because he'll just grow out of it and all this will magically go away. So I don't have to like make any decisions regarding this. So there's that. Then the other part of readiness is maybe having a misperception of what teaching sleep skills looks like. And so for mom, there was a little bit of fear, like, well, what if it's cry it out? I don't want to do cry it out. So like, I don't even want to like, yeah, I want the end result of my child sleeping, but I don't want to have to like endure a process that doesn't align with my parenting.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's the third part, which is kind of like, but I love holding him and he's my baby. He's doing right? Because there
Yes.
is, I mean,
Yeah.
let's just be honest, there is nothing, you know, on a good night,
Yeah. There's
there's
still
nothing more
times where,
beautiful.
yes,
There's
yeah.
nothing more beautiful than rocking your baby to sleep or having them fall asleep. I mean, you know, again, like I'm not against sleep crutches. They can be beautiful, helpful, lovely, attentive, and they work fabulous until they just don't work, right? So
Yeah.
then there's that other part of readiness, which is like, okay, like this child is getting big enough and strong enough that I can no longer keep up with these sleep demands. He might actually be showing me he's ready. And in your case, this kid was so ready to learn independent sleep skills. He was like, thank you. Boom.
Leave the room faster, please.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is great,
Mhm.
which is always surprising. But again, I think it's just so important, you know, to just call out this like dual readiness, child's readiness, so you can feel good about doing it, and your readiness to accept that your baby is ready and that you need to be ready because your readiness depends just as much on their readiness.
Mhm. And I would
And
say, like, we didn't recognize his readiness until we engaged talking with you. And it was after our kickoff call that I really started watching him and realizing, like, oh, he's showing these signs that you talked about. And oh, he is ready. And so, so that was something of like, I couldn't come up with that readiness on my own. I needed to hear what readiness looked like to really be able to even start to look at the bigger picture of, oh, that's what that means when he does this, or oh, that's what it looks like. And I recognize this and I see that now.
oh, I love that, Mom. So yeah, so in
Mhm.
other words, just to clarify, if everyone's like, "Oh, is my kid ready? Like, what's going on?"
Yeah.
So basically, what I heard Mom say is
Mhm.
that knowing her confidence started to build when she was able to look clearly at the situation
Mhm.
and say,
Yeah. Well, because
interesting. This
we
isn't going
talked.
to solve itself. And these are
Mhm.
the reasons why is because sleep is a learned skill. And
Mhm.
I, as mother and dad, need to create the right circumstances and environment for there to be a blooming of the opportunity for those skills to come online. And he's already showing me in many circumstances that he's practicing some of these skills, but I didn't even know that's what he was doing.
Mhm.
So he's already showing me that he's ready and I just didn't even know.
I couldn't, I was too stuck in we were just living minute by minute and like not being able to like really look ahead or really see the signs of what was happening because we were so sleep deprived. And it wasn't until we started talking and even like, signed up and said, okay, we're going to do this, that then it was like, oh, and it kind of got the shift of like, I feel weird telling people that we are needing to, like focus on our kids' sleep and do that. And I don't even want to like say it out loud because I'm not sure that this is the right choice. And then it was, as the week kind of went by before we really started, it was like, oh, but I see that he's doing this. Oh, I see he's doing that. And it was like feeling more and more confident as we got closer to really starting because it was like, wait, this is what he wants and this is what he needs. And that was, really that was a turning point for me to be able to even just talk about it externally.
Okay. I love that. Thank you so much. Yeah. So, I always offer a sleep strategy session.
And we did it. And that was, that it was that session that then kind of kicked off the whole thing of like, here we go.
Right, because
Mhm.
again, I think it's so important to be able to talk to a sleep expert and say, okay, look at my unique situation. This is what's going on with my child. This is what's going on with my life. This is what's going on with my parenting values. Is this normal? Is it not normal? And if it's not normal, is there anything we can do? And what would that look like? Because this is what I'm afraid of, or this is, right. And then we got to have that, and that coming and getting that accurate and reliable information from me based on your unique situation
Mhm.
then allowed you to go back and kind of have another sit down with dad and be like, okay, I see now. I see that we can get help. I can see where this kid's ready to learn. I can see how I could probably take on this new job offer because
Mhm.
this kid is really showing readiness to learn and we can get him sleeping through the night. And then I can feel good about taking this job because I'll actually have brain
Mhm.
power to do it.
And even, during that sleep, triage session that we had, it was like, and we, you helped guide us towards tools where we could have done it ourselves. And we could have said, you know, like after that call, like, great, Joanna, thank you so much. You led us to resources. We can, you know, kind of take this on and try to do it ourselves. And just looking at each other being like, we are so tapped out and drained and not sleeping, and we need help. We want someone to come in and help us make the decisions and help us do that. But we were able to make that choice. And I think that was also really, you know, of like, you're not signing up for the whole entire package
No.
if you don't want to, you know, and so I think that was also, you know, a really helpful metric as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. I thank you for mentioning that. Yeah. So I should say that the point of the sleep strategy session or sleep triage is really all about options. It's all about options. And because as a parent, like oftentimes thinking about what to do about sleep is your first big parenting decision that you have to make. You know, obviously you have a big parenting decision to have a baby and all that, but once you're
I mean, that's a big,
parenting,
yeah.
you know, once you're in parenting mode, you know, that's
Mhm.
different. Right now, it's like here you are at 14 months needing to make an important parenting decision to sleep train or not to sleep train, to do it by ourselves or to do it with support. So I always look at all the different angles that you could go, so you know that you can be successful on your own, or you could be successful with support. And here you know, here are all the angles to look at it so that it's easier for you to make your decision.
Yeah.
So with that being said, what does life look like now? Like we are through our process. We are here on our celebration call. What does baby 14-month-old boy, his sleep look like now?
It's insane. He sleeps for 12 hours a night, goes to sleep at 6 p.m. What a concept. I mean, it's like you have the whole evening still of like, okay, cool. Now what do? We have a reliable, you know, like
We're not battling for like 3 hours to get him to bed.
no, it takes all of 15 minutes to put him to sleep. And I think like that's like the cool thing of like, I don't have to feel like, okay, you need to have your entire life in order because you're gonna go into the room and you're never gonna be able to come back out.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, oh, I can just eat my dinner after he's in bed, and that's fine.
When he goes to bed, you're certain he's gonna stay asleep. That used to never be the case. We used to be like, oh, we could watch a show maybe, but he could wake up in half an hour or an hour, and then we have to go in the room and go full hands on again.
Mhm.
And we just are able to confidently, we can order sushi, we can have a little
Date night.
stay date.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you know, but there's also like time for the little house projects, you know, of like, oh, these things, you know, there's hours in the night before it's time for you to go to bed to like actually accomplish things. Which is just, you know, what a life-changing moment. We're able to dream of like, okay, we could go on now that he's sleeping through the night. We have caregivers asking to take him and willing to, you know, like spend the night with him and drop him off so we can go on a vacation.
Lining up.
You know, what does that look like? And so I think that's, you know, really been an exciting shift for us. And then too, you know, like a reliable morning wake up. Okay, so I know if I wake up a half an hour earlier, I could take a shower and get ready for the day if I wanted to. Or, you know, like what is that, you know, what that looks like too is just really helpful.
Yeah, like a family schedule, because now he's taking amazing. So the days of contact naps are over.
Yeah, you're able
Yeah.
to.
do
What are you
naps.
able to do during the day?
Yeah.
Naps?
Yep, I can do. I have a full hour every nap, and that can be doing chores or just taking a breather
Mhm.
after running around on the park with the guy. So
Yeah,
I have more
exactly.
energy.
Because he has the baby has more energy too. The toddler is running around like wild,
Yeah.
but it's exciting. It's, you know,
Yeah.
it's learning all
Mhm.
the stuff.
Yeah. So huge improvement. Amazing. And so you kind of already touched on this, but I think there's more that's become possible for you now because he's sleeping and he's waking up happy and well rested, and he loves his crib, and he's taking gorgeous naps, and he's sleeping 12 hours a night. Okay, again, night and day. Like, what has become possible in your life, either now or what you're planning for in the future, that was totally off the table prior to sleep training?
We just got an invitation in the mail like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, for a wedding a year from now. So like, I mean, like really far off. And it's
Yeah.
you know, it's a destination wedding, no kids invited. And
Yeah.
if we had gotten that invitation a month ago, it would have
Well,
been an automatic no.
Yeah.
Like
That would have
there's
gone in
no
the
I
draft.
mean,
It'd be
when
like,
we
thanks,
got
but no
it,
thanks.
I started to automatically write it off, and then mom said we could go. And I went, wait, We could go.
We could go.
could go.
So we could, you know, it's a year away. I mean,
Yeah.
like, even like, but like when we were in the thick of it, there was no way even a year, like without a possibility of like, what would he be doing in a year from now? You couldn't guarantee what that would be. And so it's that like,
We never wanted to, like, we had family who would offer to take him overnight, and it was like, I can't put that on anyone. I go through that every night, and I don't want anyone else to experience having to wake up 3 times a night and then an hour in the middle and just wait. Yeah.
But
And
now like, oh yeah, we could be
It's
gone
easy.
for a week, you know, like that would be an okay thing. And
you can dream big.
and that's been really, really cool.
I know. So yeah, so in very short order, all these possibilities opened up. Number one, the grandparents are like, sign me up. I'm ready to do a slumber party. The aunties and uncles, sign me up, slumber party. Grandma's got a lake house. Grandma's like, get that pack and play, get that slumber pod. We're spending the summer on the island. Right? So all these things that literally 3 weeks ago would have just been depressing to even think about. They would have not been fun to plan for. And now they're all ready. Like the calendar's already getting filled up. Like you guys already did naps at grandma's house this weekend and it worked out great.
It's, you know, starting to pressure test the whole thing, and it's like, oh wow, this actually like continues to work. And I think, you know, just how quickly we were able to go from, you know, like life is terrible to, oh, we have like space and bandwidth, and we can make plans, and we can do things, and we can go out to dinner and have a babysitter come over, and you know, it's really life-changing.
We can go on a real vacation.
You guys now can save your money to go do this awesome destination wedding. Okay, so if you met a sleep deprived, overwhelmed family, and they were either too afraid to sleep train because they had some terrible misperceptions about sleep training was bad, or sleep training is mean, or sleep training is not what a good parent does. So they either had that vibe, no fault of their own. They just, that is kind of like what's out there, right? So there's all that kind of negativity around it. Or you met a parent that is like, sleep coach, what? I've never even heard of that. That's weird. What is that? What would you want each of those two people to know?
I think one of the things that really stuck out to me was the concept that like kids, like they need to learn how to sleep, and really putting it in like the adult perspective of like, how many nights do we, you know, like we don't fall asleep right away, you know, where you're tossing and turning because you're trying to get your pillow more comfortable, or, you know, you're like, oh, you're overdue to flip your mattress and it's, you know, it's bugging you, and whatever that might look like, right? And that like the same thing can be true for, you know, for young kids and, you know, babies and such, of that, like, just because they're not comfortable doesn't mean they're not able to fall asleep. And, you know, and kind of that, like, it's okay to have, you know, his favorite thing right now is to, you know, roll around and babble or sing to himself, and then he'll sing himself to sleep. And it's like, that's fine, because he's, you know, he's learning how to regulate and how to do that. And I think that that was something that it was like, oh, as an adult, I struggle with that sometimes. And like, and that's, you know, like, and so it's okay for not okay for him to struggle with it, but he needs to learn how to do that, you know, and that's a skill that doesn't just like come overnight, you know, you have to learn it. But I think too of that, it's this aspect of that, you know, that they do need to learn it, and that it's something that like is not just going to happen, and you can't just like, you know, that milestone isn't just going to like show up one day of that, like, oh, they're just like perfect and they've slept through the night and like I can now reliably, you know, like do that. And
and I think about how much work we did with you just to figure out exactly when the routine begins for going to bed and waking up, and nailing that down, like getting the routine and then teaching it to him. Once we figured it out and started to teach it to him, he really picked up on it so quickly that it was like, wow, he just needed the framework to be able to do this. But we would have never like like just like you were saying, we never would have stumbled upon it ourselves.
No, yeah.
It wouldn't have been an accident. And with your help, we were able to, yeah, very quickly go, okay, that's too late, move bedtime earlier and try, okay, still too late, move it earlier, okay, have calm period beforehand, and now he just, yeah, he falls asleep in like 5 minutes or less and is just asleep.
Yeah, so that's why I always like to say is that, sleep training is nothing scary. It's nothing dangerous. It's probably one of the best and most important things you can do, because all sleep training really is creating the right environment, the right circumstances, using the right methodology to meet the temperament of your child at the right age and stage, to create that optimal environment at the onset of sleep at bedtime, so they can start to take that skill set under all those conditions I just mentioned, which is a lot of conditions to kind of tease out for each individual family. And then once they know it there, they can begin to build it at each arousal cycle all night long. And because it's a learned skill, it's sequential learning, right? Like you don't just know it here and then know it every arousal cycle. It's like you have to build the skill set all throughout the night, because people consolidate arousals in different ways. So it's a sequential learning. It's done at the pace that's appropriate for your child. It's totally collaborative with the parents, right? I mean, every step of the way, it's like, okay, guys, fast boat or slow boat. Like, do you know, I know what I'm looking for. So I'm looking at all those details and nuances, and I'm looking for those signals of readiness. And so I'm constantly giving you options like, okay, so he's showing us ready for this. This is what we can do. We can do it this way or this way. What would you like? And then we choose that. And then we make another observation and choice. And that's what I mean about from the very beginning, it's all about options. And every step of the way through, as the learning is growing and solidifying, it's option, 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 option until we reach all your goals. So it's an incredibly supportive, collaborative process. I mean, I like to use the word empowering, because like you guys work together as a team. Like there was no arguing, there's no like drama, right? Minimal tears, like, right? I mean, didn't you, so it just, don't you almost feel like it's the opposite of what you thought it was going to be, Mom? Because you were like,
Yeah. Well,
yeah, because honestly, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
When I heard of sleep training, I mean, the cry it out is just what so many people tell you they did with their kids, and it's so traumatic to think about him having to be alone in his room crying, and we didn't do any of that, and it was slowly just getting him, like going through the process, he just got used to, each part of the process, and nothing was really like, we didn't ever worry that he was like getting, emotional trauma. Yeah, he was just like, he would be a little upset at each change, but he'd go to sleep, and then we were like, great, okay, and now he's ready for the next step.
And I think too, through the whole process, we learned more about him. Like as we look to like the next stages of his life, 14, 15 months, he's getting into the, stage of, big feelings and toddler emotions, and not knowing how to express himself in those ways. And I feel like through this whole process, we've learned what the different tiers are. We've learned what, just like what he needs and what he wants. And it's been, we've had often of like, we started with the temper tantrums type stuff. And we're like, oh, well, that's Joanna. Joanna called it, game-changing moment. He's looking for it right here in our, like during the day.
Yep.
And I think, that's also, it's just made us better parents to him during the daytime. A, because we're asleep, we've slept. But B, we've started to kind of, understand his vibes and his needs and his, ways of communicating.
exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much, you guys, for sharing your story. It's been awesome. And I love that your baby boy is logging his 12 hours and that you guys are going to be able
Thank
to have,
you.
yeah, have a beautiful summer out traveling with your boy because he's portable sleeper now. And that's what
Yeah.
that was one of our goals is to build a portable sleeper. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for
Never would
sharing
have
your
guessed
story.
he would have gotten there.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you for trusting me and thank you for trusting the process of gentle sleep coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.